Mm. Welcome everyone to this webinar built in and not bolted on reconciling agile delivery with risk management. It is a pleasure to welcome you on this February the 12th to discuss, to discover, and to exchange. Um, so don't hesitate to put in the chat where you're from, and say hi to us. That would be lovely. Hello, Germany. Hello, Bangalore. Romania. Very nice. Oh, Tucson in Arizona. Greetings. Hello, Saudi Arabia, Poland, UK, oh, Tokyo, Montreal. Oh, wow, we've got everywhere in the world. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. This is our pleasure to welcome you. This is awesome. So before we get started, a few things that I would like to remind you. Sophie, if you would like to go to the next slide, that'd be excellent. So welcome to the Built-in, Not Bolted On webinar with Sophie. Uh, Remind you that this session is being recorded and will be made available to you to watch on demand after the session. You will receive an email so that you can rewatch any part of this webinar. In order to get your feedback and your questions, we will invite you to use the Q&A functionality in Zoom so that I can pause the webinar and ask a few questions, and then Sophie and I can answer that. We want to have as many interaction as possible with you guys. And also be reminder to be open-minded. We're going to talk about a lot about a very, very tough subject. Sophie and I have been working on the preparation for some time, and we had some really brilliant discussions. So I'm sure you will have as well. Just for your information, next slide, please, Sophie. My name is Odile Moreau. I will be the host today, and I work for Scaled Agile. I'm not specialized in risk management, but I've worked a lot in highly compliant and risk prone industry. So I'm really happy to have Sophie on board today from Nooga. Sophie, would you like to say a few words before we get started?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. Happy to hear that we have people from all around the globe. I'm Sophie. I'm product manager at Nooga, building Nooga Risk. My background is within governance, risk, and compliance (GRC), and I would call myself a specialist and expert in risk management. But I have so much more to understand and so much more to learn, of course. I've also worked with internal controls, business continuity, information security, and have experience from working with safe and agile methodologies. So the combination of GRC and this software development and agile practices is actually where we see a big gap in most organizations. So strategic risks that don't reach the teams that make daily decisions, and on the other hand, operational risks or security risks that cannot efficiently flow back to leadership. And in between, like governance, risk, and compliance functions, development teams end up frustrating about each other, mismatch in language, context, and cadence. So I will also introduce a little bit about Nooga, what we do, because I represent Nooga. So what we see is that to be successful today, you need things to work together. So one part is the technology, repositories, automated pipelines, AI is very important, of course, DevOps principles, and releasing fast and often. And the second part is doing the right things. It's about way of working. And even if we have all the capacity in the world to do things and we have great tools, then if we cannot figure out the ways of working, it wouldn't matter. So at Nooga, we combine the knowledge from both sides, software engineering with the governance, risk and compliance, and agile. So we're supporting customers in modern ways of working at the platform they are already using. So that's where the data sits, and that's also where teams are familiar. So the product family in the middle consists all of extensions to the Microsoft collaboration platform Azure DevOps. And that's our approach when it comes to governance, risk, and compliance, to make something for the many and not the few, to place risk management in a context that actually means something.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sophie. And I know that you are very modest because when we were preparing, I mean, I feel the passion about that topic. And as we've discussed, SAFE has some guidance about risk management, but we don't go too deep. So when we were preparing this webinar, we wanted to have a hands-on experience. So let's get started with a little poll question. I don't know, Letitia, if you can send the poll, but we are very curious to understand where you are from, which part of the organization. So if we could get started with the poll question, that would be awesome. And then in the meantime, Sophie, the floor is yours.
All right. So what we see is that we can actually have this mismatch between agile ways of working and governance, risk, and compliance. So risks living in separate spreadsheets or tools far away from actual workflows, and decisions are not always considering risks. We have this lack of alignment when it comes to risk assessments that may be carried out quarterly, while we have development teams that ships daily. So going back to the clinch between cadence and our ability to actually speak the same language around this topic. So I will loop back to some key pains that I believe is very important to address, and that I also see as something that's successful in the way of carrying out a more agile practice of risk management, namely context and cadence.
Excellent. So right before we already have 72 people who voted. So could we reveal the answer to the poll so that we get a better understanding? So excellent. So the majority of you are at art level. So roles like RTE or product management, or you are part of system architects. We have also 18% executive and leadership level. So we're very happy with that because Sophie has a lot to say about that and also to showcase in the demo. 13% portfolio level and then 15% team level, which is really funny because we were expecting a lot of people from risk governance and compliance, but we only got like 7 people, but never mind, because I think we need to start somewhere. So thank you very much for the poll. All right, Sophie, let's get started with the first use cases. When we were preparing, we discussed a lot about what is the goal of an organization. Obviously, is to enable the flow of value and reducing interruption. For the safe aficionados among yourself, you know it's all about principle number 6, to make sure that we reduce any interruption and delays. But we know also that it can be quite of a challenge. So Sophie, from your experience, take it away.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think some winning concept here is to look at context and cadence. So before jumping into that, what I would like to do is actually to start going back a little bit, to start with the basics. And that's about talking why we do risk management, because this is not obvious to everyone, especially now if we do not have 100% or 90% of the crowd coming from that space. So we do risk management to reach our objectives, and it's a method for reducing uncertainties. So put in practice, it should support decision making. because we are making decisions to reach the objectives. And just to keep this in like some sort of context that's more easy to grasp. So I would like to have 3 examples. The first one is to actually keep what needs to be secured. Second one would be to uphold the services that are important for our customers, meaning one way is to stay resilient in a proactive way, but also have the ability to quickly respond and recover from incidents. And the third one, which is of course very familiar within this audience, is to deliver value. So I actually had a conversation with a product manager working in a financial institution, and she told us that they have had a product ready for 2 years, but it was sitting on the shelf due to the lack of NPAP documentation requirements, meaning that internal requirements of what documentation would be needed in order to actually have this product out on the market. So that's, of course, something that interrupts flow and value. And again, reaching objectives and another relatable example. So first of all, you need to understand your context and you need to know where you're going. So if you have the objective to climb on top of a mountain, then risk management should help you and guide you in reaching that top. By that, I mean work proactively, so you can come prepared with the right set of clothes or right set of equipments to actually succeed, but also to make sure that you can recover from some unexpected incident. So risk management is a technique that can be used to analyze and support you in the decisions along the road, either to what to pack beforehand or on a daily basis when you're climbing. And a little bit of a recall, I did a lightning talk at the SAFE Summit in Sorrento about a year ago, presenting an alternative method to the fishbone diagram, which was called the bow tie. And I don't know who's heard about that, but it's a method. Let's call it a method, and I will show it, and you can see where it will be good to apply. I like it for risk management. So first of all, a risk is defined by 3 parts. Risk that something happens due to something that may lead to something. So on your left-hand side, you have the drivers of the probability of the risk. Because if a risk, it's something about uncertainty, right? So if a risk is actually 100% certain, then it's not a risk, it's a fact. So that's good to remember. The other side, the consequences, that's actually what determines the impact of the risk. So usually you use some sort of method to calculate the total, to understand the total of the risk. And once you understand all the parts, you can actually compare this risk in relation to other risks and make sure you can do good priorities, focus on what matters most, and you have the foundation of actually understanding how to deal with it in an efficient way. So you may choose to deal with the causes, or you may choose to deal with the consequences, or maybe both. So that's called the bow tie. And if we make an example of that one as well, risk of theft, risk of something being stolen, right? Due to that, we have not enough security in some way. We lack security measures. And that may lead to lots of things like the assets being lost, but also regulatory sanctions, inability to meet customer obligations, and so forth. And in this case, we have one risk, but it's not in a context. So depending on the context, we have the same risk, but the risk will not be the same depending on the context. So what I want to say here is that you can work with risks, but if you don't put it in the context, you don't know. You don't know what to focus about. And I mean, it's also hard to understand, like, when do I do enough? Is a lock on the door enough? Yes, maybe on the right, but not on the left. So here's a way to put it in the context. And going back to climbing, a prerequisite is to know the context again. And risk management is unfortunately known to be a one-time exercise while the context is changing constantly. So you can actually set and determine the context while working with risks as well. So first of all, decide what's important for you. What's actually important when climbing this mountain? Is it the specific one, or is it just any mountain? Or Would you prefer company or can you go solo? Is it important when the weather is good? Do I need to adapt to any weather season? Or how much money am I willing to spend? So all these matters. Very relatable in a business context. So here is just a guidance and a practical example of next time we're actually doing some change. Just have this like a quick round to understand what or who will it impact. Is it stakeholders, customers, other teams? Will it affect some sort of money? Are we changing something from a technical point of view? What sort of data are we handling? And do we have any other requirements? Last, maybe controversial or maybe not. Risk is not equal to compliance. So we need to stop treating risk as a compliance checkbox exercise. So I took part of a DORA implementation, which is a European legislation for financial sectors. And DORA has explicit demands on project management. So I got this question asked to me. But over 2 years ago, we actually stopped working with product management and we did this agile transformation and we don't do projects anymore. So do we need to go back to projects to actually be compliant with DORA? And by that, I want to encourage everyone to speak in the organization with each other and take care of each other's knowledge, because we need to better understand the objectives of the regulations. Such as DORA or such as other regulations. Why are they there in the first place? So they're not. So DORA, NIS2, or Cyber Resilience Act, they're very much talked about in Europe, but we have around the world the same trends. And that's also because of the landscape and the threat landscape we have, of course. But it's they're not only addressing accountability, incident reporting, and how to implement different security measures to stay resilient, but they're actually specifically require active practices of doing risk management, which is also, of course, it could be confusing. So if doing risk management itself is seen as, and if it's treated like only a compliance exercise rather than actually support decision making, then how can we actually build secure and resilient products? And I see that we're missing out on why the regulations has been adopted in the first place. So one example is that we can have the business stops and cannot use the service. Well, that's a business risk. It will cost a lot of money. If we do not report that incident that happened to authorities that we are obliged to when it comes to legislations, then that's a compliance risk. But like what matters most, of course, they can both matter, maybe equally, or one may be more important. It depends on the context and the organization where you work. All right. That's a lot of intro, actually, and I would like to jump into a demo.
Yeah, but I think it was necessary because, especially for the people who are listening to us, because the majority are not from risk, that, risk is not equal to compliance. For me, that was an eye-opener. But yes, I agree with you. I think the people are very, very curious about how Nooga and Nooga Risk is taking care of things. So go ahead, Sophie.
All right. So here I will show you how we are working with the part when it comes to integration and also to put risk management in the context. So first of all, this is Azure DevOps. And if you're not familiar with this, it may be something new, but it's a way to work in a Kanban flow with tickets, see it that way. And in this case, once we have decided on what to do, what feature, we can add the risk functionality directly in the work items. So here's a way to choose on what level we want to work with risk. We can then have an instant overview of all the risks related in the context of this feature. We can look at progress if we actually have treatment activities going on. We can see who's responsible, and we can also add for those treatment activities, we can also add and tie them to other work items. That's actually something we need to do, because actually treating a risk, it's not lower only if you have just something in mind. You actually need to do something most of the times. So you can add it to work items, and you can have those work items in the backlog, which will then be, of course, an integrated way of seeing the risks and work continuously. It's also possible to create new risks, or if you want to accept risks, you have this governance structure already built in the tool. So all the approval flows and escalations flow and the levels of risks that someone can actually accept can be set to different people, meaning that you can always have this compliance checks and traceability of who decided what at what time. For an epic, for example, or something that lives during a longer time period, you may do one risk assessment, and then actually the contexts are changing and we are adding new things to our development. Then it's possible to look at the total risk exposure over time. So you may look into the details, you can click on the different squares in the visual risk matrix to understand what may be most important for you. You can sort the table. I would urge everyone to focus on the higher rated risks. Why? Because these are the ones that will actually affect the way you can achieve the objectives, and in this case, the feature. So if you escalated something, then you can have all the audit evidence, the business justifications. They will stay in Azure DevOps. You can write it all. You see who did what at what time. So the path can be followed, and you can also see who's responsible for the next step, who needs to do something, who needs to take an action for this. So that's our way of putting risk management in a workflow and also in a context. So you do not need to leave and all the data is in the same place.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Sophie. So if I understood correctly, this view and this functionality in Nooga Risk allows everyone, not just the risk compliance officers, but it could be a business owner, could be a portfolio manager, up to the teams that are working on the specific epics and then splitting it up into functionalities or even stories. So if I understood correctly, this is the main power of this first demo, right?
Yes, definitely. And if you see it from a governance, risk, and compliance perspective, what can be really tricky is to actually get accurate data.
Mm-hmm.
So
Excellent.
if you always need to chase people to force them to fill in something just for the sake of filling in and reporting for someone else to report, then what's the motivation, and how do you really understand why you're doing this? And it does
Yeah.
not support decisions.
No, exactly. That is brilliant. We already have a question, but I would like to park it because it is something that we're going to see in the second use case. Basically, how do we articulate the assessment of probability and the severity of the risk, and then the safe roaming? So we will park it for there. There is another question from François Xavier. Wouldn't a risk be a long-lived item? Meaning the risk may get mitigated today, but we evolve as we evolve the solution. Shouldn't we recheck that the risk remains mitigated? Should it be treated as you would in a test or in a test run? So a lot of question about the longevity and the life cycle of a risk there.
I mean, it's super interesting. It's also, when it comes to development, we're actually risk management. We're doing risk management for change, right? So we're changing something. So once we put that in production, then we may live with the risk and we need to do something. But when we're still changing and when we're building and when we're planning things, we can still be either we can redirect and plan differently, build differently, or we could just say like let's make sure we do lots of tests. Let's make sure we track this one and see what happens. What continuity plans do we have if actually an incident occur? And I mean, good practice is probably that we have some sort of rollback plan or something as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. So I'm going to park that question because it's already there. But let's have a look now at the second use case. And in our discussion, that was obviously for the people in SAFE, you know about risk roaming. Usually it happens during the PI planning. But what we see is that, and then what happens? So we decided to go beyond just the risk roaming. And I think, Sophie, you've got also some great insights and experience to share with us.
Yes, so I think this is a great opportunity to actually bring the worlds a little bit more together. Rome as a well-established and for many a familiar event in planning. But what we have experienced is that maybe we don't always get the most out of this Rome. So I would see it as like it's a great but also bare minimum and lightweight risk management practice. It's well established, but it's also something that many people from GRC has never heard about. So it's something completely new, but it's there and we should definitely use it. So when we work with Rome, we classify risks into different categories, and that should serve as a decision of understanding how confident are we actually delivering the value for the upcoming PI and the plan. It's a great way to start, but it's not always covering the full life cycle of a risk. And we need to understand how big the risks are, because like easy, quick, simple risks, like non-complex things, just take care of them. But sometimes it's actually more complex and higher rated ones, and they need another type of treatments. So we have seen some like common pains and common problematic teams when it comes to Rome. So one thing is that you mentioned, Odile, that maybe we do this once and we never revisit it, or we actually don't assess the risk. So when we're accepting a risk, it may actually exceed the threshold level that we have already set as an organization. Or we decide to do treatments on risks that does not, like they do not deserve treatments because they're so small. So we should not focus on those things. So it's about like reducing noise and make sure we focus on what matters. We are developing in this area as well. We have our tool called Scale, which supports us when we're doing planning. We can look at dependencies. We can plan across teams at art level. And I will start this as well and walk you through it. As mentioned before, I might be like very repeatable here, but context is everything. And equally important would actually be timing or cadence. So when it comes to risk management, if you do something on a quarterly basis that does not match at all with what you're actually planning, then that's not supporting decisions. So in this case, we have the Scale. This is a new feature which is not out for Scale customers yet. So we're trying it out. We have a Rome board where we can categorize risks into the different squares. Some has already been assigned owners. We can see here that some risks has been identified, but they have not yet been assessed. We can also see that some has been assessed. So at the bottom here, they are assessed at a very low levels, meaning that they do not matter that much. We can probably accept some of these without doing anything. We can also assign owners to the risk that does not have owners, because we don't want to leave PI planning with lots of open risks here, right? We want to make sure that at least someone has taken action or someone is responsible for driving this forward. So we can assign owners. And we can also, from this view, as you see, we have the Rome tab, and we also have a risk matrix tab. So that's a way to look at the visuals of the risks. When we assessing the risk, we can have the companies, the organizations guidance of how do we rate risk in our organization. And we can select the probability, we can select the severity, and we can also name this differently, because sometimes, and this is always also confusing, probability is that likelihood, is a chance. We can call that differently, and language and naming it the same things is actually important for common understanding. Here is a way to put it into a context. So for this one, we will link it to a PI objective. We want to focus on what matters most, right? So if we're putting in the context, then we can actually look at the value we're about to deliver within this PI. So again, the risk matrix with a visual overview. Here is a way to be able to sort by the risk score. We want to sort out all the noise. We can see where we need to take action. So for this one, we do not have an assigned user still. We can see what work item and what objective it actually relates to. So, and it's also possible to click in the matrix to get detailed views of what's in this one. Like if we have anything on the top, that drags my attention, at least. It's possible to assess risks from this view as well. And they will also be possible to assess from the Rome view, because we see a big value of actually understanding before we do something with it, to understand how to deal with it and how important it is. Going to the PI objectives, in Scale, we can see that we have a planned business value for one PI objective that's higher than the other one. So again, we don't want too much noise. We want to focus on what matters. We can visit the PI objective that's most important, or like what we at least expect to give us the most or highest business value. And we can look at this at one time or throughout the PI. We can here click in the matrix. It's also possible to sort by risk score to make sure we focus on the right things. Here we can see that we still don't have an assigned user. I'm pretty sure that's the same risk we're talking about here. And it's also possible to look at this on an aggregated level. So if we have aggregated PI objectives, we can have this overview with the matrix where we see different types of work items that belongs to this. So in this case, we can have the overview of the aggregated PI objective, or we can look at related work items if we want to, and then we can get the view of looking at what PI objectives are actually important here.
Excellent. So lots of questions, Sophie. I think your demo was very powerful. So the one that I didn't want to answer before, it was, what would be your advice on how to articulate the assessment of probability and severity of the risk and the safe roaming? So I think this is exactly what you've been presenting, that one does not cancel the other. They are pretty much collaborative. And what I really enjoyed from that perspective, I'm more of a people person, so the collaboration between a lot of people. So in the roaming, you've got obviously the normal stakeholder of the train, like product managers, RTEs, obviously, that will guide that session. But I think if you've got invite the risk managers at the same time, they can work on parallel on categorization and assessing the risk, and then they can add their value to the discussion. So I think this is a very, very powerful way to bring those people together and to make them collaborate. Excellent. I had also a question about, does the tool allow linking interdependencies across risks that belong to different arts or different organizational entities?
So, what will be a call to action when we are finishing in this webinar is actually to um, have you who asked that question work with us, because this is early development, and we want to build this so it still serves the purpose of actually being this easy risk exercise that's very much needed. I mean, we do not have much time at PI planning, so we want that to be easy and quick, and it serves the purpose of actually make sure we can have valuable discussions and focus on what matters. But at the same time, with a little bit of nudge, and also how can we prepare to actually deal with those risks that needs other treatments later on. So I don't have a good answer to exactly how what works and what does not work, because we're building this right now. So if there's something that's needed and if you see good value from it, then please reach out and I want to hear more.
Excellent. And then we will give you also the opportunity to reach out. We've got a QR code in the end. All right, let's finish with obviously what everybody's looking for, and it's AI. AI, it's, yeah, we can't avoid it anymore. It's there. So I'm pretty sure that you have also some great functionality that you have built in your tool. Sophie, take it away.
Yes, I mean, AI is part of everything, and it's also part of our development thoughts from the start. So we are continuously evaluating where it would bring value, and we have lots of features in mind. And not at least when it comes to the development of our incident tool and how we can actually benefit from understanding like what has happened before could actually be a risk in the future, and vice versa. So AI, what you say, like garbage in, landfill out. So we need to make sure we have good data. And what we see is that it's interesting because in Azure DevOps, you have lots of data, you have lots of connections, you have repositories, and you have lots of good security measures already. So how can we combine that in a good way? And what data can we help get the help of AI? And what we see is also that in today's world and risk landscape, especially in development where the speed is really high, we may have like one risk manager up to a ratio of several hundreds, which of course doesn't make sense to actually get the support you want. So use AI to have like a little guidance and use as a second or third extra risk management to support you. That's also a way to scale. So I will show how we have thought about the AI, how we think about AI features as to start. A little bit of a sneak peek of our portfolio tool. I know that this is not even the latest development. We're working with a pilot program for our portfolio tool in Azure DevOps as well. So I'm sure that the pilot customers has actually access to that latest development that has been done. But anyway, if you go into an epic, so this is just one way of reaching an epic, a work item. It could be another work item as well. So what you can do is that you can choose to identify existing risks from your risk register. So you can choose to do that manually. You can choose to search to keywords, for example, if it's data or if it's GDPR or if it's some sort of risk that pops up again and again and again, then you can search for that and you can have the core set of risks that you want to work with. But you can also then use AI to search to the epic related work items and your risk register. And in this case, AI does not come up with any new risks, but it searches through and will suggest relevant risks for you to take into consideration. So we've built this one to always keep the human in the loop here, at least to start with. I think that's responsible to do. So you will need to read through and see, yes, they are applicable, or no, well, actually not. AI was just spinning off here. So you choose those risks, either that you select yourself or from AI, and then you assess those risks. And here as well, what we have seen and what when we have worked together with development teams, it's really not always easy to come up with a good risk description. And going back to the three parts with the bow tie, it's not easy to understand like what's actually the causes. It's a bit of a what comes first, chicken or the hen or the egg, or that whole combination. That can be tricky. So you can type in something that you're worried about here, and you can get some AI assistance to actually draft that risk description. And in this case, it will help you and guide you. Well, here is actually some of the root causes that may lead to this risk. And of course, you as a human will need to accept this risk if it's relevant or not. And then you will need to assess it in the context of this epic or other work items. So that's our first two use cases in the Nooga risk tool when it comes to AI.
Excellent. Yeah.
Right.
Great. So thank you very much, Sophie. I'm looking at the time, and I would like to give the time to for everyone to reach out. I would like to invite everyone to reach out. I love working with Nooga because they are pretty much customer centric. So they are really working with their customers or future customers. And I think that is the beauty of Nooga and their strength. So if you have any ideas, if you've got any wishes, if you want to know more about the product, please sign up and get in touch with Sophie and her team. Really brilliant people, really brilliant mind. I mean, last year we did an LPM and we got so many people joining the community. I think that was really brilliant. And then there is also good news. If you want to see Sophie in real life or colleagues during the Safe Summit, Magnus and Amelie will also be on stage, but they will be there during the 2 days. They've got a booth at the summit, and it's in Amsterdam this year. So sorry for the people who are joining from outside Europe. Maybe if it's a success, they will come back to the one in San Diego in September. But the one in Europe taking place is the one in Amsterdam. So don't hesitate to reach out to them. Sophie, I think we've got a few more minutes for a few questions. There is somebody who would like to know how the AI agent is plugged into ADO or ADO. I don't know what it is. Maybe something with Azure DevOps.
Yes, so it's good to know that our AI features are opt-in. So when you install the tool, you need to actively opt in and use the AI features. We are also using Azure models for AI.
Okay.
We're of course looking at how can we in the future make it possible to use your own AI model or other types of AI model. But right now the strength is to keep it in within Azure DevOps. And also when you're installing our tools, we do not store data. The data in our tools will also be stored in Azure DevOps. So we're displaying data, but we're not storing. That's
All
also
right. Okay, and then I've got a last question. Is the AI working on premise?
no. And for the risk tool, the first ones will be on not on-prem.
Okay, thank you.
But
And then
we are
Glenn,
always
yeah.
happy to discuss that.
All right, okay. And then Glenn, I'm sorry we run out of time, but please, you are joining us in Amsterdam. So have a chat with us. We can discuss more about the decentralized decision making, because I truly believe that the tool will allow for the decentralization making. It's not just one person who decides. It's really thanks to the insights that you get that you can speed things up as well, also in the decision making. So thank you very much, Sophie. It was a pleasure to host you. I cannot wait for the new functionalities. I cannot wait also for the community to reach out. And again, thank you all and have a great rest of your day or your afternoon or your evening. And see you very soon at the Safe Summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.